Okay, so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna mix up a loaf of bread. So I've got the bowl, my mixing bowl. I've got a scale here that's set to grams. So I put the bowl on and then I zero it out. So now it's registering 0. And then I'm doing all my measurement by weight, not by volume. And this is super important if you want to have consistent success with your bread. So it's got to be by weight. Thank you, dog. Okay. So I just scoop in. I'm looking for 425 grams of flour. So there we go. There I'm at 450. So I'll just scoop a little bit out until I'm at 425. Right there. That goes off to the side. Now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna add some salt and some of my starter and some water, and then mix all that up there. But when I take some starter out of here, I want to replenish it. So I'm going to refeed it. So I just use the same scoop I was using before, zero it on that, and then I'm going to get 105. Look at that, 105 grams of flour ready to mix in there after I've used some of this. So now I've got my container here. I zero that one, and I just want to come here and have a look at this a little more closely. This is my starter, so it's getting a little bit of a liquid on the top. That's called hooch. That's not a problem at all. That's normal. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't drink it personally, but it's hooch just the same. I can give this a stir. You can see that it's a little bit stretchy there. That's good. That's a good sign. That's the gluten actually that makes it stretchy like that and gives it structure. You can see there's some little lumps in there. We don't really want those in the bread because they might turn out as little lumps of dry flour. So sometimes, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes you get a little lump like that, and basically it's dry flour that gets encapsulated with the wet on the outside. Usually the starter is strong enough that it'll just eat right through there and get into all of it. So I just squish those out on the side of the container. Give this a good stir before I pour. I'm at 0 over here. And I'm going for 270 grams. Now, normally this would be 266, but I know that some is going to stick, about 5 grams worth is going to stick to the side of my container here, so I just go for 270. Now, very precise measurement with the salt. This out of the way now. So in my flour right here, I take my hand like this, that I've washed. Thank you, coronavirus. I've washed it a zillion times today. Washed my hands. So I just pour some salt out and I make a line like that. And that's the right amount. Exactly, perfectly. Actually, that's a little, strangely enough, that's more precise than this kitchen scale, which only has a resolution of 5 grams. So now I've got the salt in, I've got flour in, pour in my starter. There we go. And scrape off the sides of this container. There we go. Back there it says 5 grams. So that's roughly where I want to be. Now I'm going to add 250 grams of water, which I've already measured out here. Normally I would just do it in there, but just to save time in the video, 250 grams of water. Again, by weight, you can do it if you're precise enough. This 105 grams of flour into there. And with that 105 grams of water, 175 grams of water. So there we go. So now I stir this in, and basically what we're trying to do is break up the big lump of flour that's floating on the top, stir it all in there. So this will get a little bit more liquid usually as you stir this in. Because there's less gluten developed. Gluten is a starch basically, but it forms as a chain, and that's what gives it that stringy texture. And it's basically, when you have a piece of bread, it's the gluten that gives it the structure so that bubbles can form and it rises up. So that's what gluten is for. So there. Now it's a little bit lumpy. The little lumps I'm not going to worry about. Bigger ones I'll try and squish them against the side of my container. Put that in there, and I just cover this up loosely. Don't want to seal it completely because this will create gas. The yeast in there, as it does its magic, will create gas, so you want it to be able to escape. So that I'm going to leave that out on the counter to do its work, and I'll probably put it in the fridge overnight just to slow it down a little bit. That's really sort of where experience comes in. I've got to slow mine down because my culture is fairly aggressive. Otherwise, what happens is it goes through all that gluten, and then it eats the gluten, all the yeast and the bacteria, the good stuff. It all eats that gluten, and then you have no structure left for your bread, and it turns into a puck. So now we just mix this together, and this is a no-knead bread. So basically, I'm just mixing until everything's wet. I'm not here to knead it. I'm not here to develop the loaf just yet. But basically, there we go. I just want to get that dry flour turned in there, and so there's no lumps anywhere, and it gets pretty goopy very quickly. That's it. Get rid of that little dry spot and scrape that back in there, and I'll wash that. And I've got my lid here, so this is just going to sit out on the counter again like that. I'm going to cover it because my house is dry and I don't want it to dry out, especially on the top. So I've got a little bit of a gap right there, but so there, it can breathe a little bit so the extra gas can come out, but it's basically covered and the humidity will tend to stay in there. And I'm gonna let that go till about, it's noon now, so about 6 or 7, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, something like that tonight. I'll have a look, and usually this will get bigger, first of all, but wetter as well. It'll look a little more wet on the outside. And that's it. Clean up, all done.